Very good morning to all, and welcome to this first webinar of SEMCA, and in a broader theme of SEMCA Higher Education Integrated Model. And SEMCA trying to reach to unreached in this very big crisis time, which is we are moving into and facing very big challenge to fight against the coronavirus and COVID-19. So with this note, I would like to introduce our resource person and speaker today. And I am really great privileged that getting consent from Professor Mostafa Ajad Kamal from Bangladesh Open University. Professor Mostafa Ajad Kamal is presently working at Bangladesh Open University as the Dean of the School of Business. He is a professor in international and development economics. He has been engaged in open and distance learning for last 22 years. He is currently working as a member of the International Academic Board for Commonwealth Executive MBA and MPA programs, which is offered by Commonwealth of Learning, Vancouver, Canada, which is our headquarters. He is also a part of the consultant of Commonwealth of Learning for technology-enabled learning, ODL and OER, as well as he's also the consultant of SEMCA for development of OER policy and creative, particularly the implementation of policy strategies. And Professor Mostafa is a Creative Commons certified trainer on OER and open licenses. He is also a Creative Commons fellow for open leadership. Professor Mostafa is the country representative in Bangladesh for Creative Commons Bangladesh chapter, and also the member of the 15-member Central Membership Committee of Creative Commons. USA. He is the president of Center of Open Knowledge, Bangladesh. Professor Mostafa got experience in coordinating, supporting, and evaluating a number of international and national projects relating to the e-learning and OER, ODL, as well as quality assurance in higher education. He has wider experience in different places last 25 years and moving towards the more than 25 countries, conducting workshops and participating as a keynote speaker, presenter, and panelist in different sessions. His research focus are open education resources, open educational practices, blended learning, technology-enabled learning, holistic education, and development of economics. So we can understand that wider experience and wider move he has in higher education sector. And I welcome on behalf of SEMCA and on behalf of all of you to Professor Mostafa. And Professor Mostafa, you are most welcome to this webinar session. And I would like to hand over the session. And you will be speaking about 25 minutes. And when 20 minutes will completed, I will just knock you 5 minutes left in the chat session. And you can wind up another 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes of question answer session. Then we will wrap up the session accordingly. So over to Professor Mostafa. And before that, I would like to request my participants kindly mute your mics and listen to Professor Mostafa. And after completion of his talk, and we can unmute mics and speak when you will get your turn. Thank you very much. And over to Professor Mostafa.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Manash. And actually, the topic of Today's webinar, you already know from the notification, is mainstreaming OER for inclusive education for the Commonwealth Asia, potentials and key challenges. Actually, we know that if something is copyrighted, there are some restrictions there. So if it is copyrighted, we know the things become a little bit expensive, so it becomes costly because you cannot copy it. The original books, original articles, everything usually becomes costly, and it is time consuming. So when you go to produce any resource by ourselves, this is also time consuming. And another thing is access. In terms of access also, it is very difficult because we cannot have access to everything because the journals are paywalled and the publishers are paywalled, so you cannot have access to everything. So in this context, we can see that if the resources are not open, we'll talk about the openness a little bit later. So if the resources are not open, the cost becomes very high. The access to the resources becomes very limited. And also the quality cannot be improved further because some resources are produced by someone, and if it is not, it cannot be widely shared, then they cannot get more feedback on that resource, and the improvement becomes a little bit slow. So the quality of resources becomes a little bit, undermined sometimes because there is limited scope for improvement. But what happens if you look at the look at some quotes? One is I can use here. It is H.G. Wells. He said, "Human history becomes more and more a race between education and catastrophe." So actually, education becomes very much critical, but people, for different reasons, for limited access to resources because it becomes expensive, and for other kinds of infrastructure, a lot of other limitations, poverty, etc. People cannot have education. So this is kind of catastrophe. You'll see that because since we cannot access or we cannot have education, we cannot ensure education for all. Yes, sometimes we have a slogan like education for all to quality. So education, access to quality education for all. So what I find that we even cannot ensure the access to education for all. So then quality education is far, still is far. But keeping all these people outside the orbit of education, a vast majority of the people outside the orbit of education, we cannot expect that the world will be safer. So as Amartya Sen said, if we continue to leave vast section of the population of the world outside the orbit of education, we make the world not only less just, but also less secure. So it is important that everybody should have wider access to education. And then we can read another quote from Lawrence Lessing. He was the creator of Creative Commons, So he said monopoly controls have been exception in free societies. In a free society, actually, the having monopoly is a kind of exception. But there have been a rule in closed society. If a society is very much closed, you'll find that everything is monopolized, everything is centralized, everything is controlled. So this is another thing. If you like to have a free society, then actually this kind of restrictions, copyright restrictions, should not be widened that much. Everywhere, if you put the copyright restrictions, that is a challenge for a free society. And then we can quote we can read another quotation. Freedom has thousands charms to show. The slaves, however contented, never know. So this quote has been made by William Cowper. actually freedom got a lot of charms. So usually we started to forget that because we try to keep everything restricted, everything confined, everything copyrighted. So that's why it is very important to ensure freedom, freedom of access to the resources, freedom of education. So all these things are coming together because these are becoming very much, difficult to run a society without this kind of disparity, especially in terms of the access to education. So in this case, the big challenge is actually uh, the educational resources. And that's why UNESCO, they came up in 2002, they came up with a concept which is called OER, Open Educational Resources. Open Educational Resources, the concept actually came to the scene in 2002, but in 2012, in World OER Congress that has been arranged by UNESCO in Paris, uh, there was a OER declaration. From that OER declaration, this OER practice, OER licenses, all these things has been came out very widely. So people started to think how to share, and some organizations like Creative Commons, they came in to ensure that people can share their resources openly. So there should be some licenses. In copyright, if you have a copyright, if you own the resource, you can license, you can permit others. If you don't own the resource, you cannot permit. So that's why some licenses, open licenses should be there. Previously, yes, there were some licenses like, JNU and some others, open source licenses, a lot of softwares are there. So, and from 2012, after this declaration, Creative Commons came forward and they actually established some licenses, Creative Commons license, So, yeah, it is a little bit tricky that I'm just speaking. Yeah, 2012, the journey started formally, and in 2017, it was another second OER Congress. What happened in Slovenia? So they came up with some OER action plans. So, and as a result, UNESCO approved this year, early this year, they approved the OER recommendations. So all the countries, UNESCO member states, they now endorse this OER recommendation. So this will now be implemented from the national level also. So this is one thing. And what is OER? As per the OER recommendation, the recent definition is open educational resources are learning, teaching, and research materials in any public domain or are under copyright that have been released under an open license that permit no cost access, reuse, repurpose, adoption, and redistribution by others. So this I actually took from the recommendation, recent the approved recommendation, OER recommendation by UNESCO. And what is open? When you talk about open, David Oiley, he proposed 5R criteria for identifying the level of openness. So when you talk or speak about openness, for example, one textbook, if I try to tell that it is open, so it should maintain some criteria, like it must be reused so people can copy it. So now, if it is copyrighted, if you photocopy, it is a violation of copyright law. But if it is OER, you don't need to violate because this permission is there. So you can reuse, you can revise, you can remix, you can mix it with others, you can redistribute, and you can retain. So I think the most of you are familiar with this thing. So that's why I'll go quickly. So these 5R principles are there. So if you have 4Rs, for example, or 3Rs, so you have to understand that the openness becomes little bit limited. So if you like to see the material or resource most open, so it should be in public domain. Otherwise, some Creative Commons licenses should be there. And in Creative Commons licenses, for example, CC BY, so that license actually fulfill even 5R principles. So when we talk about openness, we have to keep these things in our mind, that it should be the material should be reused, revised, remixed, redistributed properly. So it should be easy. Otherwise, because if I like to reuse, fine, I can copy it. But if I like to revise, that should be the format is important. If it is PDF, that will be difficult. So if it is image, that will be difficult. So we have to understand that openness is not meaning that it is freely available. It is freely available. It got the permission, but even if I have the permission, I may not be able to revise it. If I don't revise it, what is the use of that? Sometimes you need to customize. So that's why these 5R principles are very important. So, Creative Commons, they gave the licenses, CC licenses. We are familiar with these things. Creative Commons, it's a non-profit organization. So they are trying to implement all these licenses. They already, they have 5 licenses. In the meantime, Creative Commons, they proposed 6 licenses mostly. One is CC BY, CC BY SA, CC BY NC, CC BY NC SA. These are 4 licenses. And there are other 2 licenses, CC BY ND, CC BY NC ND. ND licenses are very much restricted. We cannot edit mostly for public sharing. So we know that ND licenses are very much restricted. So that's why these are not considered as OER. Because if you go to share, if you edit and you share, that is not permitted. So if you edit, you can use in your classroom maybe, but it is not possible for you to share with others. So you have 6 licenses: CC BY, CC BY SA, CC BY NC, CC BY NC SA, CC BY ND, and CC BY NC ND. So, so we can now understand that most open resources are which are residing in public domain. Public domain are these resources are copyright free, and you have CC licenses. So the CC license things, and also CC0, that is also considered as just like public domain. So if you like to sacrifice your resource now, because public domain usually it indicates that the resources in public domain have been sacrificed, not sacrificed, uh, have been copyright free, because after the death of the creator, maybe 50 years after the death of the creator or 60 years, depend on the country's copyright law. So the resources goes to public domain. But CC0 means now, if you like to sacrifice anything, if you like to dedicate anything to public domain, you can do this. So you can put CC0 for that. And other licenses, what I mentioned already. So these licenses, you can see, when you look for OER, you have to look at the licenses. So whether it is under open license, otherwise it's not safe to download or edit. Then we have a lot of repositories. So when we talk, so when we talk about the CC license things, so a lot of CC license things are there. Almost, you can say almost 5 billion resources are already under CC license. So you have a lot of OERs, textbooks, reports, you have articles, you have images, you have videos, you have audio, clips, a lot of things are there. So it is available now. It is available. Yes, we are uploading, we are contributing, and already 5 billion, almost 5 billion resources are there. So a lot of repositories are there. So like we are Commons, we are Open Courseware Consortium. They have consortium and all the a lot of repositories are connected by them. MIT Open Courseware. Uh, so a lot of open courses are there and resources are there. A lot of repositories are there. So I am not going all these things since we cannot show. And now, why to create or use OER? That is a big question. So why we have to use OER or create OER? What is our benefit? That is a big question. That's why it is not being popularized. Still, it is struggling. The universities, schools, and governments, they are a little bit confused sometimes. So why they need to create or use OER? Why they have to implement the OER policy. So what is the use of that? So just I am giving you some statistics. David Oiley, he published this statistics. I think the world is from that book he took this. So for one 250-page book, if you copy by hand, it takes $1,000. If you write the book, if you just write, you are not typing. So if you copy by printer, you know, previously, long before 2003, 1,000 years back, maybe 400 years back, still people wrote the book by hand. So it was very much expensive. Then copy by printer. Copy by printer $4.90. And then copy by computer, the cost has been reduced to $0.00084. Can you imagine? So where it was 1,000, if you, when people wrote the books by hand, they copied by hands. And now, during this age of computer, we can see that the cost has been reduced. Now it is reduced further, maybe because the data is a little bit earlier. I mean, maybe 2013 or something like that. So now the cost has been very much low. Can you imagine $0.00084? So 1,000 to $0.0084 if you copy by computer, because you just what you need, you will take one file to another file on another folder, or so you see, very easy. If you have a file, so several people can copy from there, so it's very easy. Then cost of distribution. So that is, I said, copying and cost of distribution for 250-page book. Distribution by mail, previously we distributed by mail, it was $5.20, this data says. And then distribution internet, it costs $0.00072. You see, 5.20 to $0.00072. So these are the benefits of this internet-based world or the technology-based world. So in this world, we have huge technology. We can easily copy at a very almost at zero cost. So when the copying is this much easy, why we are these publishers, they are actually taking huge money for the books. Still they are taking huge money. If you subscribe in a journal, you know, you have to pay huge money. It's not $1 or $2. You have to pay yearly a handsome amount of money. So it is found that if you adopt OER, if you implement OER in your teaching learning process, you will save money. You will save. So one statistic again, I can read for you is 80% for open textbook, the students say 80% when they use open textbook in their actual learning. So if you adapt the open textbooks for your courses, you can save money. So why to share openly? So that is the benefit. You can minimize the cost. Sharing openly is good. Education is usually public. So education is usually what most of the education is supported by public money, and you need to be uh, very much transparent and accountable to the society since you are using the public money. So you need to cover most of the people, and equality in access is very important. All these things are coming up, and the recent research says it turns out students to use OER, and
One
it
minute only.
does. Pardon?
1 minute only.
1 minute left. Okay. So these are the benefits what I mentioned in OER, using OER. But what kind of strategies we can take? So strategies for mainstreaming OER. So if you like to mainstream OER, what you have to do? The first thing is you can go for some policies. That is very important. This is a kind of top-down thing. So you can go for some institutional OER policies. So SIMCA, they are promoting the OER policies at different organizations, institutions. That is a big deal. So if you have a commitment, policy means a commitment. If you have a commitment, you can implement OER, and people will be used to creating and using OER. That is the important thing. So when you will use open textbook for your course, the university goes up policy. Otherwise, it's very difficult. And then there should be bottom-up policy. Like bottom-up strategy can be like training, capacity building. So SIMCA is providing capacity building training, and COLE is providing capacity building training for the institutions, for the professors and teachers, and the librarians, technical people, so that they can be they can be aware of these things. Their capacity is built up. How to create OER, how to use OER, how to combine OER for their courses, etc. And then the most important thing, what I should say, it should be inside out. Inside out means the change management system. If you like to mainstream, you have to talk to your colleagues. You have to sit together. So sometimes at Bangladesh Open University, we sit together. At my faculty, we sit together. We talk between each other so that the mainstream happens. So sometimes top down is fine. Bottom up capacity building is fine. After the training, what you are doing? Sometimes we are not doing anything. So then we can go together. So inside out also works. So you have to change the management system. That means if the people start to talk, just to discuss the benefits, start to discuss how to use OER. So all these things, if they discuss, then this benefit will come out, and the people will be benefiting from this kind of using OER, and they will be very much attentive in this. And finally, I should conclude with one news story. It has been published by MIT Technology Review, in MIT Technology Review. They covered a story. China's students will now study online because coronavirus has shut schools. So you see, this kind of problems are everywhere. So it is coronavirus, and a lot of other, sometimes the countries shut down because of hartal, band, a lot of things. So what you will do? So you have to be online, you have to be connected through technology. If you are connected through technology, you must consider or give priority, high priority to OER. Otherwise, it will not actually be very much efficient, because if you go for an online course, if you can use the online resources, then you can make it more meaningful. Anyway, so thank you very much, Dr. Manash, for inviting me to this session. So it was very nice to be with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you
now
very
it's
much,
up to
Professor
you.
Mostafa. Now it is open for the question answer. And if I will look into the time, so we have only 5 minutes in our hand. So one or two questions I can take together and over to Professor Mostafa so that he can answer to the questions. We can take one or two questions together. Please unmute your mic, and if you can unmute, you can open your video also. It is possible.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Satwan Balse from Mumbai. So we have just ventured into this open education resources. Now, since we have very less time, so I'll focus on this main question when it comes to exploring the research sources for historical research. In historical research, we rely on primary sources for which we have to go to the archives. Now, archives are very much restricted to big cities. So people who are staying in the outskirts or who are staying in Mofussil and village regions, for them, it's difficult. And especially in current situation, it's like impossible. It's like becoming impossible even for us city people. um, we cannot rely on open education resources because they can be manipulated. Many facts can be manipulated, so it becomes a responsibility of a historian to present the correct facts, which can be corroborated only from archival sources. So, what I'm saying, I mean, it's not a question, but I'm just presenting a difficulty
Okay.
as an historian, what we are facing, and yet, these archival sources have not got digitized.
Okay.
So that is a big problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other question? Any other concern? Please unmute your mic, then ask. So over to Professor Mostafa, please.
So yes, thank you for, it's a very critical question. Still, we are struggling with this kind of access to the genuine resources. So what you can try, because also you will find a lot of images, especially a lot of images, a lot of archives as OER, because if you search Creative Commons site, so they have a search engine, CC search, so you can have the GLAM site. So in GLAM site, you can have a lot of images from the established museums, etc. So you can find, so maybe what you are expecting, uh, it may not match with that, but you can, if it is found there, if it is under an open license, you can download and you can reshape it. So for the images you can get there, and for the text, actually you have a lot of repositories. For example, if you go to BC campus, so they have a lot of content. So if you go there, so what you will find that they follow a process, quality assurance process. So you have to choose the right repository. That is very important. If you choose the right repository, then it's fine. But when you go to the established repository, that's fine. But if you search in Google, yeah, it will be confused. You will be a little bit confused. But if you go to an established OER repository, then you can, I think you can
Okay.
try, and just we can keep in touch. We can see.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
I'll definitely try because, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Please. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Mostafa. If there is no more questions, just I would like to conclude and extend my gratitude and thanks to Professor Mostafa, given his consent and time. Though we faced a little bit tech problem with sharing of the slides, but definitely there is a way we need to go for that. And I would like to extend my thanks to all the participants from different corners of the Commonwealth Asia. And I look forward to join us again in our next session, which will be shared time and schedule beforehand. And thank you very much. And the video will be shared to everyone, which is created right now, and which may be helpful for you and for your students and for your academic involvement. And thank you very much, and to stay at home and follow the directives of the WHO and all other state and national level, international level advisories, and stay and make yourself safe and make community safe. Thank you very much for joining with us.